This is Wild About Liberty, where the community joins together. Now here's your host, Terry Wild.
You are going to love to hear from our guest today, Dennis Smith. You're from Tulare. You actually do a number of things. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell people about your organization?
Dennis Smith, and I'm from Tulare County. Lived down there almost all my life. Was born here in Fresno County, actually.
Were you?
And I've been active with the Tulare County Republican Central Committee since 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Became active politically, although I was self-taught, did a lot of reading, and kept up with politics, since Ronald Reagan.
Well, we've seen a lot of changes since then, haven't we?
Yes, we have. And was raising my family and running a business that I started when I was 27 years old.
What kind of business was that?
We supplied building materials to contractors, doors,
Nice.
locks, and molding, and the finished
Sure.
package stuff.
Right.
And when Tea Party started in 2010, 2012, I became active then.
Okay.
And got involved with the Tea Party. And from there, got elected to the Tulare County Republican Central Committee in 2012 and have been active since.
Well, I came into politics after that, really after the Tea Party kind of was fading a little bit. And in fact, what do you think of that whole situation? The Tea Party rose up nationwide. It became such a dynamic influence. And then it just seemed to implode. What's your thoughts about that?
I don't know so much that it imploded as it withered because of the age of a lot of people that were involved at the birth of the Tea Party. There were a lot of people, speaking of Tulare County, that were in their 50s, 60s, 70s at that time. And so people just naturally aged and got older. And then with the original enthusiasm that generated, a lot of people just kind of withered away because of losing interest and not wanting to stay in for the long haul.
Yeah, I never actually thought of it that way, but you're right. We're finding it a little difficult with the people coming up and the younger people to see what we saw. They just don't see what we saw.
And, what we saw was a lot of activity, a lot of emotion, a lot of passion, and a lot of fun. Obviously, most of it was fun, being together and having things to do, parties and all of that type of thing that really I'd like to see the Republican Party use a lot of that stuff to be able to get the word out.
Well, the world we are living in now, we wouldn't recognize 25 years ago. You and I wouldn't. You're 82. Is that a fair thing to say on the air? I'm going to be 78 in a couple of weeks.
I'm 71.
You're 71?
Yeah.
I thought Lynn said, I don't know who she was joking then when she said that. But we both seen a world that was basically different from anything we're seeing today. I mean, no one would have believed that we could see the kinds of things going on in our schools, and to have somebody like Biden set up an administration that is so untruthful. They're so corrupt in my mind that you just can't believe them no matter what they say.
Well, Ronald Reagan was great at communicating America first. He was great with communicating with the American people on our level that he loved the country and therefore loved the American citizens, the people of the country.
He did.
And in order to do that, you have to be an America first person. You have to love the country. And to move beyond that, then you move into the administration of George H.W. Bush and then into the Clinton administration. And this is not a an America First attitude in either one of those. It was much more of a globalist. And I kind of draw the line between America First. I'm not withdrawing from the world. I'm not an isolationist, but I want my leaders to be an America First person where they're serving and representing the people of the country before they are serving the ideals of some globalist United Nations WEF type of situation that wants to take control away from us as a sovereign nation state, and then down through that, control away from us as our 50 states, and control away from us in our local counties and cities. And that's the consolidation of power to a central place. In this case, we're talking about consolidating power into Washington, D.C. on everything that the liberal, socialists, Marxists do is just antithetical to the way the country was founded.
Well, in normal, rational circumstances, you would think that's just common sense, wouldn't you?
Well, that's
It's
the problem with it
you
isn't.
take care of your family first, and then you help your neighbor, and then maybe some other people. But you have to start with managing and taking care of your own first. And the way they vilified Trump, Trump has a lot of the characteristics that Reagan had.
Yes.
And I think that may have been part of his inspiration. I know he went to a military school, and he was raised up in sort of a military discipline environment, Trump I'm talking about. But I think he was probably heavily influenced by Reagan, and he carries that same passion, I think. And then people can feel that. I can feel it.
Well, the difference there is, and I'm talking about the difference between Trump and the difference between the run-of-the-mill progressive socialist.
$1 billion.
Yeah, the difference is between a person who has owned his own company and therefore has produced goods and services, has built things, and has the confidence that type of thing generates. And because of that, it's a whole lot easier to be thankful for the country and the political system and the economic system that allows you to make those business strategies work and benefit your family. And in so doing, you're benefiting a lot of other people, whether it's someone wanting to go to a Trump-owned property and rent a room or whatever that might be. And when you oppose that to a socialist, well, that's antithetical, because a socialist wants everybody else to pay for your largesse and to make sure that you have everything you want or need. And with that difference, it's, for me, rather easy to make that line of
Sure,
demarcation.
yeah. Well, there's a backstory to Trump that I thought was amazing. I'm trying to think of Katrina's last name. She was a spokeswoman, African-American woman, for the Tea Party. And she spoke on major TV and radio stations, CNN, NBC, ABC. And Katrina was a single mom, lived in Texas, and she is talented as heck. In fact, when Trump got elected, he appointed her as one of her close advisors. But Katrina was on the air. CNN called Katrina when the day Trump announced. And so she said, they called her, they said, "Can you come on camera?" She said, "No, I'm at a hotel, we're at a meeting. I can go to my room and talk to you on the phone." So she did. So they said, "Well, Katrina, we just want to get your reaction. You're the spokeswoman for the Tea Party and the conservative movement. What's your reaction to this almost a joke that Donald Trump, of all people, is going to run for president?" And she told me this herself, so I'm telling you right from her lips. And she said, she told them, "Well, I was waiting for this and hoping for this, because if he decides to run, he's going to win. and he just announced it. So that means he's going to win. And they said, well, Katrina, your credibility's on the line. I mean, you can't honestly believe that this guy out of nowhere, Donald Trump, without any background in politics, doesn't know the ropes, and has an ego as big as the universe, is going to win against Hillary Clinton, a seasoned pro, knows what she's doing, has all this backing, has all this money. She said, I'm going to back Trump, and I'm going to make sure I do everything I can to get him elected. So she was up in her room. So now she hung up. She went to the elevator. She had to get back into the meeting. And she was just ready to open the door to the room, the banquet room, and the phone rang, and it was Trump. And Trump said, Katrina, I want you on my staff. When can I meet with you? I want to set up a whole media center for you, wherever you want. She said, well, I'm a single mom. I'm not going to uproot myself unless I know we really have some, commitment. And he said, okay, my people will be at your house building a full broadcast quality media center with television and radio. They sent the contractors in. They built her at her home, her own studio. And then eventually, once he actually won, she moved to Washington and became his consultant. But she said what actually happened was she went to Trump a couple months before. She was in a meeting where Trump was present, and she wasn't going to introduce herself. She just kind of stayed aside. And she said she just felt a prompting to go up to him. And she went up to Trump and she said, Donald, I'm Katrina. I'll think of her last name in just a second. But, and I just want to tell you, you have to run for president. He said, well, yeah, that's nice. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. She said, no, you don't understand. You have to run. Because if you don't run, this country is done. And I'm just telling you, this is from my own opinion, you have to run. And he said later on that very much influenced his decision. So these stories about Trump, he is a businessman. He knows how to evaluate risk and reward and all of that, and whether he's going to put his reputation, his money, his name on the line. But something like that from the Tea Party, background, made him run.
Well, everything about the Tea Party was grassroots.
Yes.
And I'm 100% convinced grassroots activism is the way to be able to win elections, because in that instance, you're not playing a corporate structure. And by and large, my opinion is that the Democratic Party is run as a corporate structure, so that everybody downstream takes orders from whoever's above them.
I envy that. I envy them.
And President Trump tapped into the grassroots, and that is what propelled him to where he's at.
Exactly.
And the grassroots activism that was started in 2010 through what then we called back then was the Tea Party was an effort that has benefited us still to this day, where there were hundreds, there were thousands of people that became active and ran for office, whether it be Steve Brandow here in Fresno County, people in Tulare County. We have benefited tremendously because of the grassroots efforts of the Tea Party.
But that whole movement is not easy to manage. That we're so independent.
Well, the point is taken, and be right down to this. There was a period in time when the Tea Party was on the rise, that the establishment, the media, the left, everybody was trying to find that leader that they could then attack. And the Tea Party put together video cameras and stuff. And in different meetings, you would have whoever was at the meeting, one after another, they would go in front of that camera and say, "I'm the leader of the Tea Party. I'm the leader of the Tea Party. I'm the leader of the Tea Party." And
Sounds like Spartacus.
and the difference back then was they never were able to find somebody
They didn't have a target.
that they could focus on and put a target on
Yeah.
because it was all just regular, everyday people.
Yeah.
And you see the difference between what they've done with President Trump and what they weren't able to do with the Tea Party.
Well, do you have a military background by any chance?
No, I don't.
Well, I do, and I was in a highly sensitive 8-inch howitzer battalion that had all kinds of incredible capabilities. And so our security and discipline was extremely high. And we had to meet on a regular basis in a war room and plan and develop and execute the plan and adjust our mission and all these things. And I came off the streets. I was a high school dropout. And I fell in love with that whole environment. I just felt so good about being in a structure and having discipline and having people above you that could look out for you, really. And so I enjoyed all that. But once you get trained that way, it's awful hard to not have a structure and an organized way of doing things. And I find that here, since I started Liberty Coalition, 4 years ago, we walked through the front door of that building, and then 3 months later, the COVID hit. But working with the Tea Party, independent groups and people, it's like herding cats. You can't put a whole bunch of structure around that. And so that's kind of worries me, and I'm seeing us now, finally, I think we are settling in. I think we're able to organize. But what's your feeling about how can we improve our organizational ability, because that's what the Democrats beat us at every time.
Well, you got to remember that by and large, the Democrat machine is all run on money. And that money pays for
Good
the
point.
local
point.
organizing and all of that. From top to bottom, it's more of a corporate structure.
Right.
So what happened was in 2016, Hillary Clinton, running in the typical Democrat corporate structure where she's the chosen one by the party to run for that presidential office, she ran into the Trump machine, which was fueled for the first time since, in my opinion, Ronald Reagan, the first time where she was up against a candidate who was chosen by the Republican base. The grassroots is who propelled Donald J. Trump into the candidacy for the president. It wasn't Jeb Bush. It was
exactly right.
And so,
well, they're never Trumpers even today.
Well, regardless, I'm just making the point that grassroots support is what made Donald Trump invincible and got him into the presidency.
And
in
it's
that
keeping him
2016.
alive today.
Well, yes.
I mean, look at
yes.
what they're doing to that guy. I
Because
don't know.
he still connects with us on an individual basis. When I hear him speak and when I watch him at his rallies and stuff like that, there's still a personal connection there because I know he loves this country.
It does.
And regardless of all of the stuff and the accusations and the court cases and stuff like that they throw at him, I know that he loves this country.
You know, a lot of people love the country, but can you think of anybody that could withstand the kind of assault that they've put on him, the amount of money they're spending, all the legal attacks, everything that's going on? I can't think of a human being capable of doing what he's able to do in those circumstances.
I can't either. I know of no one that has the steel in his spine like Donald J. Trump does.
Plus, having a couple $1 billion does help. I mean,
But you have to remember that, again, making a comparison to Ronald Reagan and Donald J. Trump.
right.
And even though we're talking about a couple of decades later for Donald J. Trump, the the additional pressure that is put on him is that he actually came out and said, and this is when he owned me coming down the escalator, America first.
Nice.
And when he said America first, he communicated to that elite structure that's in place the world over, which in my opinion is demonically motivated, that he's going to put the sovereignty of this country first and the American people first before all these hopes and wishes and machinations of these people that want to impose a central government, a one world government, all of that other stuff that they want to impose upon each of us as individuals. And when he took that battle on, that was even a bigger battle than Ronald Reagan took on at the time that he was running.
But don't you think that those of us who have known Christ for so long, I've been saved for over 50 years, and all these pastors and leaders, and we've kind of become institutionalized ourselves as a Christian church or community of churches, and and I just laugh. I bet you there are millions of us that scratch our heads saying, God, really? Are you actually choosing this guy? Do you have your hand on this guy? How is that possible? And yet, I honestly think he does. But I just don't understand how to reconcile it all biblically. I have a tough time with that.
The Old Testament kings and prophets and leaders in the Old Testament,
Nebuchadnezzar,
they were all broken,
messed up people. And God is able to work his will in an individual, because the reality is every single one of us are broken in some way, obviously. Otherwise, we would need a savior. Exactly.
So everybody has imperfections and for all of sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Okay.
We get to use that ourselves. You can say, okay, I may not be perfect. You may look at me and find faults, but what about Donald Trump?
There's no may in it. I know I'm not perfect.
Exactly.
And so I know that God is able to use any person that he wants to use to accomplish his purpose. And I believe that that purpose is entwined in the nation of the United States of America from its very beginning all the way through today, and to however far into the future that's going to run.
Well, you would probably have a good answer for this yourself with your long-term relationship with the Lord. But how do you reconcile the idea right now that, as Christians, we have to be accountable and we have to be involved in every human aspect of life? God created us human. He created us on a planet that has natural laws, and so we're stuck with this. And yet, as Christians, we are opened up to the spiritual dimension and relationship with God and all that. We have to learn all that part of it. But reconciling the spiritual aspect of life and then the political aspect of life, when for years it's been, you don't talk about religion and politics. But now, I think it would be rejected by almost anybody that says you, as a Christian, you shouldn't be involved in politics, because many people won't. 25% of Christians vote. 50%, according to the surveys that they've taken nationwide, tell us that 50% of the Christians are registered. Of the registered Christians, only 25% vote. If they didn't, Mark Twain, in a speech years before he died, said Christians need to vote. And if they did, we'd never lose an election.
Correct. And obviously in that day and time, so many more people, a larger percentage of the population, was committed to Christianity. And it brings to mind the saying that a pastor of mine used to use so heavenly minded, no earthly good.
I
So
like that.
if governments are ordained of God, which he says they are,
Right? Romans
then
13.
then we are really required to participate in that.
If we're going to represent Christ, we represent him everywhere.
Exactly. And if the government is wrong or bad or tyrannical, then it is just as much our job to resist that and bring us back to no king but King Jesus.
Exactly.
So we do have to operate in both realms. And because of that, we're operating in this mortal realm where we inhabit this mortal tent that's called.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when we are inhabiting and being able to see above to the spiritual realm, then we get a better picture of what's going on. And this battle that we fight, I am certain in my heart, we are fighting a battle that is taking place here and taking place in the spiritual realm, and that we are fighting demonic forces that would bring us to, first of all, as a human, it would bring us to death, because that desire to separate us from our Creator, our Lord, our God, is the driving force on the demonic side.
And that's a really good point. And our function, our job after we become committed to Christ is to be conformed to his image and to be transformed into what he wants us to be as made in his image and likeness. So we need to grow in the knowledge of Christ. We need to understand that. But the real deal is you can know all that, but if you don't apply it, if it actually doesn't happen inside of you, it's kind of meaningless.
And it's a journey, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
Who of us in this mortal realm are going to attain that? Because it is through the Holy Spirit working in us that we are progressing through that. But I have no expectation of, in this mortal realm, being able to reach that point where I'm mortally sinless.
No.
Even though spiritually speaking, I am already made perfect, and he sees me through the person of Christ.
Exactly
Okay?
right. That imputed righteousness.
And that's that struggle that we have going on continually. Now, to get back to voting, if you are not taking time to self-educate and be involved and desire that his will be accomplished in this world, where we have an impact in that, doing this and doing that, doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing, we are continually impacting that day to day in our lives.
Well, you know, the John Birch Society was an organization that operated many years ago. How long has it been around, do you know?
1948?
48, something like that. And I remember being invited to meetings, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to this thing, but I don't want anybody to know I went to a John Birch Society meeting, because it was considered conspiracy theory. It was considered way out, Looney Tune stuff. And that would have been in the 80s that I was exposed. And come to find out, just about everything they ever said, not only is it true, but now to our detriment, we aren't prepared. And we have a big problem to deal with. And how do you think that organization helps us today?
The depth of their articles and their research and stuff has always been beneficial to me. And I've read a lot of their information down through the years.
Right.
Just like I read a lot of information from, whether it be USA Today or who. So I appreciate the depth of the articles.
I do too. And their track record. So now they have a track record.
Yeah.
But the woke agenda, their whole modus operandi is to discredit and make what is true false and what is false true. And they have succeeded enormously in being able to do that to people. They're trying to do it to Trump, not so successfully, but we have to come together now, today, January 2024. We're heading for an important election that if we lose this election, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's going to continue to gain steam, rolling downhill to a bad end, out of control. That's how we perceive it. It's just out of control. So that if we aren't able to turn things around, move back to individual freedom, individual responsibility, then that's where we suffer our greatest damage.
But now here's where I see the connection. And a few years ago, I was exposed to some teaching that I had to try and find answers to some family problems, and some people that I loved were being, I thought, misled biblically. But here's where I think we have to make a connection between the spiritual realm of our life and the political realm of our life. The people who believe everything you and I believe in about our Constitution and our rights and God's involvement in helping shape and form this country, they may agree with us on the political side, but the spiritual side of their life isn't pleasing to the Lord. And if the culture, and we know the culture has dramatically diminished morally, and we're in a moral crisis in our country, and God has to decide what he's going to do about that. What do you think?
The spiritual awakening, I believe we are seeing a growing momentum in a spiritual awakening. We've gone through a number of spiritual awakenings in the history of our country.
And Fresno County is really a forerunner of seeing God change a community.
Yeah. And the issue that you started that question was, the thing that binds us together as a country, as a people, as a culture, as a political entity, should be the United States Constitution.
Exactly right.
And so we are a divided country now because the people of the country have lost their love of the United States Constitution. And when you are focused on a worldview, a personal view that is a false narrative. In other words, I can be something that God didn't make me to be, and I can live in a world that is a totally made up world and is not a world of reality. And if you can be convinced to do that by political influencers or politicians or whoever, then you are, first of all, you're denying God and his position of supreme creator. And so you're denying all of that. And once you start denying that, then you've opened the door to where you're able to believe any manner of stuff that will take you into a deep, dark pit.
How do you read the moral temperature of America in relationship to God's, really his need to judge a people who go too far as a culture, as a nation?
I don't believe we've reached a point where we are going to be in judgment as a nation.
That's interesting. That's actually comforting.
I believe that we, the people, are still a religious / spiritual minded people, meaning we are a people that want to do the right thing. And I'm talking about again, let's go to grassroots. That's the best way I can use to describe that. So that we've got moms and dads, families, business people, at our level where we live, we've got people that are still focused on and wanting to do the right thing on a day-by-day basis. And by and large, what is that? 90%, 95%, 98%
Right.
live in that world. And whatever that size of that world is, of the crooks and thieves and all that stuff, really, when you get down to it, that's a small percentage of the population.
But look, yeah. Well, you're from Tulare, and you live there now. And what are some of the things you're involved in doing?
As in
Politically, how are you involved politically in Tulare, and what are your?
So in Tulare County, I'm an elected member to the Central Committee.
Right.
And I am supporting a Republican Party platform.
Mm-hmm.
I don't approve of some of the elitists, some of the paid political consultants and stuff.
Right.
I'm not saying that we don't need some of that. We need structure. We need a party structure so that we can pay for what needs to be paid for in that upper level.
Right.
So
right.
I'm not totally throwing down on the Republican Party. I see the need. I see the need for structure. I see the need for those people that are providing a 5-day-a-week job at putting together the data, putting together the programs, and doing the legal work. That's something that we don't think about on a daily basis, but there are people there that are doing the legal work every single day of keeping an eye on whether it be the elections offices and so forth,
Nice.
to be able to make this all work. But at the same time, I say that there has to be a good balance where the grassroots part of the
Are allowed
party
to function.
are allowed
Exactly.
to express
exactly
themselves, are allowed to get together and have flag waving and car caravans and
Yeah.
boat caravans
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
flags and stuff like that. Have a
Exactly.
great time,
Fly the
enjoy it,
flag.
party time, and still be able to know that our voice is heard. And again, I take you back to 2016 to where the grassroots chose the candidate.
Right.
It wasn't a Mitt Romney.
that's-
It wasn't a John McCain.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
okay. And so again, if the Democrat Party, and they haven't seen what happened in 2016 and understood it, they still haven't seen that. They haven't
Right.
been willing to hand off the power for choosing candidates to the grassroots.
Yeah. Exactly.
When they
Well,
come against us, when we're choosing candidates on a grassroots basis, and they put up a name or a person or a politician to run against a grassroots effort, they're going to lose most of the time.
Well, we got to meet your sheriff recently. He came and spoke here, and I'm going to give you an age test here. If you can remember the slogan, "We like Ike."
Oh, yes.
And now I met Mike Boudreau and he's got "We like
Mike.
which
Yes.
I thought was very good. But we really like Mike here. And Clovis is part of his district, and we're going to be involved with him. And we have a big old sign right here that's going to go outside shortly, since we get somebody brave enough to go up the ladder. And what do you think of him? What's your opinion of Mike?
I did grassroots effort for him on his first campaign.
Uh-huh.
On his second campaign, I admire him tremendously. I believe that he's a godly man, and I am really sorry that we could lose him in Tulare County
I would
as sheriff.
Be too. Oh, I would be.
However,
Yeah.
if that's the job that the Lord's given him to do, then I'm going to support him in that.
Way to go. Well, we it's sad. In the primary process, we have different views, and we're supporting him. We know Julio well here, and I would support him under different circumstances, but we've chosen to get behind Mike. And because for me, it's if we lose the Congress, we're dead. We are. I don't care if Trump gets elected or not. It's going to be a long, hard haul without the Congress, and we've got to get people in there that are ready to go day one. And Mike has that credential. He is qualified. He's worked with all of the different officials in the state, and then as a sheriff, and he's run the association. So his qualifications are irresistible. And we're encouraging people to support him and help him win in Clovis, even though, we liked David Julio and would, support him if he won in the after the primaries. But with Mike, we've got somebody that's ready to go day one.
He's got the administrative experience, and as you said, his activity has been, I don't know what they call it, chairman, I think, of the California State Sheriff's Association.
Yes.
So he definitely has all of the qualifications to be able to manage a staff. And I agree.
That's the point. The learning curve, that isn't just, you don't master that in 6 months.
Correct.
It takes time. But we're having a meeting next Wednesday night here at our facility in Clovis. And we've asked Mike to join us. So Mike and, let me see if I can get his name. George Radonovich.
You got it.
I got it. Where's Kay? I'll make her happy. But we have George and Mike. We've asked Michael Marr, and he says he's going to try and be here. Gary Bredefield is going to try and be here. And so we're doing everything we can to create a sense of unity and working together. And if we can build this coalition with these people, it gives us enough, call it resources, and especially financial resources, where it lowers the cost, economy of scale, so we can get the job done, get out to the households. I publish a paper, a newspaper online, when I was working with Kevin Cookingham, who we love here, and he should have won that election. But with Kevin, I used my background in publishing to start the Fresno Times newspaper. And then I started the Clovis Times newspaper. I didn't start them as newspapers. I used them as a way. Nobody had any money. Kevin struggled financially, so he didn't have name recognition. He didn't have the ability to market. So we used that newspaper to get him in front of a couple 100,000 people, really, over the months that we worked with him. And this was his campaign headquarters during the primary, and volunteers and so forth. So I'm going to take that whole concept, the newspapers, I want to get them out there as a special edition, a political edition, and promote our voter's guide, we're going to call it, and see if we can't effectively, there's 40,000, give or take, households in Clovis, and we're going to get them all. We're going to deliver every household at least twice, maybe 3 times, and then if we're successful in the primary, then we can expand that beyond.
Well, to kind of back up a step or two, and this was a discussion from a little earlier in the day, a lot of people feel like their vote isn't counted, feel like their voice isn't heard, and consequently can fall into that trap of I'm not being helpful here. Whatever I do is not really going to matter.
Right.
And if enough people understood that supporting someone in a campaign, whether it's with $10 or $20 or whatever it is, that there is power there for the individual to be able to impact a campaign or a cause or a great awakening or whatever it might be. On an individual basis, we all have more power to impact that than we think we do, whether it be a $10 bill versus a $1,000 bill.
Sure.
There are so many more of us in the grassroots level that we can overcome all of those other odds.
Yeah. Well, when we get started, really getting out there, which is within, this next week, we want to get our precinct walkers going with the literature and going door to door. How you guys are operating in Tulare? Are you involved in any of that direct campaigning process?
Through an individual basis, or
in other words, say for example with Mike, or say the Republican Party, I guess, do they have a working group of people in Tulare County that are out there supporting these candidates?
Yes and no. The Central Committee has the ability to, but doesn't really follow through with a precinct captain type of situation where we've got people in every precinct. So it's something that's kind of worked on, and it is being worked on, but it's not anywhere near the fruition that I would like to see it arrive at, where an individual, based upon your home, your address, is able to go and speak to those neighbors around you, whether it be 2 neighbors or whether it be a dozen neighbors around you, to, again, have an impact on a grassroots level.
Well, that's a shame, because it really is a powerful way to get the vote. It's considered, I think, by most consultants, the most effective way to get a vote is to go knock on a door and say, we want your vote.
And it's terribly, terribly, on the one hand, ineffective to the extent that people aren't home. Yeah. And you're doing, you've got a lot of effort for the amount of return that you get. Right. Therefore, you need a lot more people involved to do that, to carry some of that load, so that, again, you as an individual or me as an individual isn't responsible for 1,000 doors. We can then be responsible for whatever that might be, 10 or 20 or whatever, that we're able to do the knocking on that door of several times. And again, that's how that grassroots overcomes the lack of money, big money donors and all that stuff.
That's right.
Is the availability of the labor to knock on X number of doors, and half of them aren't home. So next week we'll knock on them again. We'll knock on them again. And pretty soon you've even created personal relationships with the people on the other side of that door.
Well, that's what we're trying to do at Liberty Coalition. We're working with the Republican Party. We're working with a number of other independent groups. Where, Fred Vanderhoof was the Fresno County Republican chairman for a number of years, and he's helping lead this effort. The Republican Party, not so much. They don't see the ability to, and they don't have the resources to actually make it happen. But we've committed ourselves. I think we have around 60 precinct walkers now, captains now. We have over 30 in Clovis. But if you're listening and you are looking for a way to make a difference, if you want to help out and see us win in this next election, then please give us a call and go to our website, libertycoalition.com, and join us and help us with this precinct plan. It's not an easy thing. I mean, we're struggling. We're giving it everything we've got. And if we could get the support, the grassroots support, we can turn things around.
Yes.
And there's a darn thing that we can physically do that I know of to prevent the cheating, because that is a big, big problem. Voter fraud is their secret weapon to defeat us. But we can't not try. I know Fred is involved with the voter integrity thing. Other people are involved. We're trying. We have lawsuits, but we have to just jump in and work as though we're going to win anyway.
Well, it comes back to doing whatever you can do.
There you go.
And if I can't walk neighborhoods, maybe I can make phone calls.
Right.
So again, it gets back to the point I made earlier that you have power.
Yes.
You just have to use whatever power that you have.
Well, please use some of your power and contact Liberty Coalition, in Clovis, California. Give us a call. Our phone number is 559-765-4293. If you want to volunteer, and if you want to send us some money, go ahead and do that too. We're located at 1123 Railroad Avenue, Clovis, California. And we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you join us and support this mutual effort to win in the elections coming up. We want to be able to make a difference in the primaries, get people like Sheriff Mike Boudreau and George Radonovich and Michael Marr and Gary Bredfield and these people who really can represent us well and make a difference and win.
And if you're in Tulare County, you can go to TulareGOP.com.
Nice.
And we've got a nice website there. You can go up to the right-hand corner and click on events, and you can see what events we have coming up. And you can make contact there to be able to volunteer and do things, or come and hang out and enjoy the time together.
One more time, the website?
Tulare, Tulare, TulareGOP.com.
And what do you do as far as a place to have people come and be part of? Do you have?
Well, our office is 1525 South Mooney Boulevard in Visalia. And it's a nice office right on Mooney Boulevard.
Ooh,
where there's
nice.
tons and tons of traffic. And we have signs, of course, and that's where we meet to get things done.
Well, maybe you and I and us can kind of swap resources and people, and we're looking for people to get out there for Mike Boudreau and canvas, and we can help you. So let's see if we can't work together.
Yeah, well,
be a grassroots force.
Last Thursday, I was up in Fresno County, put
Nice.
300 miles on the truck. We were putting out signs for Mike Marr
wow.
for Congress.
Well, I talked to Michael this morning,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's unless there's something wrong with his calendar, he's going to be here next Wednesday evening from 6 to 7:30. It's going to be a meet and greet, shake hands with the candidates, ask them questions, give them your opinion, and maybe bring a check along and help them out financially. So, Dennis Smith, what a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for taking the time and
It was
coming
great
all
being
this
here.
way. Thank you. And this is Terry Wild, thanking you for tuning in and listening to our program, Wild About Liberty. God bless. Well, thank you so much. What a blessing.
Yeah, so much of the effort that we're talking about is done by the campaigns.
Yeah, Michael Marr just confirmed that he is going to be
Good,
here.
good.
So that's good.
And the problem with it being totally geared to the campaigns is that after the election, then what do? If you're working on it just for the campaign. Whereas if you are balanced and you're working on things because you're connected with, in this case, Central Committee,
Yeah, right.
Now you've got an ongoing family, an ongoing way to be able to stay active and stay up to date and current on what's going on.
We were so fortunate here. We came in, and I was going to set up a coffee house right away. So we did all that work over there, and we got it all set up and ready to really open. I actually printed the flyers and everything, and then COVID hit. So we're locked down for a year, and up and down the next year. But keeping this place going financially has been like this. And so I'm on a fixed income, and we gave it everything we had. So we've been here for 4 years, but we started Liberty Lunch. And so people have been coming here every Wednesday from 12 to 1:30 for 4 years. And Sheriff Mims at the time just said, look, keep it on the down low. We're not going to bust you, but don't make a big production out of it. And we've had this as a hub for all these different
An American, where at least I know I'm free. But I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stay.
This is Wild About Liberty, where the community joins together. Now here's your host, Terry Wild.
Thank you for tuning in to Wild About Liberty. I'm Terry Wild, and I have a really exciting guest for you to listen to today on the show. Denise, tell us about yourself and your running for political office.
Yeah.
Tell us, folks, what you're doing.
Sure. I am running for California State Assembly, District 13. That is Stockton, Lathrop, Tracy, and Mountain House. I am so excited to be here talking to you about it. Let's make some changes in California.
Well, I guess the first question would be, why run for a political office? You're a mother, you're a wife, you've got a family. What caused you to decide to run for the political office?
I'm also a homeschooler. So, yes, there are lots of things on the table. But for the last few years, since 2015, I haven't felt represented. I've been working at the California Capitol, fighting against really extreme bills that affect every single family in the state, even if they don't know about it. So I decided, well, we're not being represented. I have the experience at the state capitol. So let's just try to change the district, and hopefully we can take our state back and have some representation.
Well, you have kids in school.
I have one son in school. Yep.
And so you have to protect your family. People are worried about that today. Education and what's going on in the schools is a big deal. And tell us what your view about that is and what difference you can make if you get elected.
You know, this public school system is the hottest topic right now because of how the teachers, how the state is creating policies to push parents out of their children's education. AB 1078 passed this year, and it was authored by Assemblymember Corey Jackson out of the Riverside area, and he wanted to make sure that parents do not have the right to ask the school board to remove sexually inappropriate material in their kids' library. And we're seeing it. We're seeing parents go to the Capitol and read the books that are so inappropriate, teaching children how to get on adult apps, and none of the legislators are listening.
It's criminal.
It's disgusting. I had to go down to my kids' school and say, if I see this kind of literature, I'm pressing charges for child pornography. This is not appropriate.
And so you want to make that difference. What do you advise people to do now? I mean, we're going to try and get you elected, and you're going to go there to represent us, but what's your view and advice for parents?
Parents have to get involved in politics. I know we're all so busy. We're raising our kids, trying to put food on the table and just get by. But politics is affecting our everyday lives. It's affecting our parental rights. The age of consent is now lowered to 12 for children to run away from home, and the state will hide them in shelters with no parental notification. We're at a breaking point in California to where parents, your first point of action is to find out who your school board members are, who your city council members are, board of supervisors, and then find out who your state representative is. Unfortunately, these legislators and elected representatives really bank on the fact that we're busy and we don't really understand politics. It feels very intimidating.
But so many parents use school as a daycare, and they just dump their kids and leave them. It's a big job. This is not, we got blindsided. We thought we had a normal world, a normal life, and our kids were in a normal school until all of a sudden the little boys are walking into the little girls' bathrooms, and it went from there, because I can vividly remember the progression of where this started.
Oh, yeah. For me, I think I saw it in 2015 with SB 277.
Right.
They labeled us anti-vaxxers, and they labeled us all of these crazy names because we didn't feel that the state had the right to tell us what kind of medical procedures our children should be participating in. And they removed religious and philosophical exemptions.
And they're almost totally immune anyway.
Right. If we actually look at the diseases that we're vaccinating for, we really... It goes back to us educating ourselves and really understanding what we're doing, because this is ingrained in us. This type of medical procedures in all the baby books. And so when 2015 hit, I really started looking at politics and trying to figure out the game of what these politicians are. And so I've been doing this for almost a decade. and I'm pretty well versed in how to play the game at the Capitol.
Did you happen to hear the interview with Tucker and the health department head of the state of Florida talking about the vaccinations? And one of them has a certain way to bring the vaccine into the Geno system, and so that is used as a delivery system for the vaccine. And once it gets into your DNA, it's supposed to be beneficial. But what happened is they brought a foreign DNA that is part of the vaccine itself, and now they're injecting a other human DNA cell into your own DNA system. And it's staggering.
If people are surprised at this new shot that's on the schedule, I would encourage people to actually look at the entire schedule and look at the ingredients because that has already happened. The flu shot has canine kidney in it. There's already aborted fetal cells in some of the live vaccines like the MMR. So this was the concern that parents had. And then we were labeled anti-vax because we didn't want to give our kids even delay.
Oh, I know. We were threatening them by not taking it. But, they do an awful good job of outperforming us. And they can characterize us in so many different ways. But now we have data, we have science, we have facts, we know what's actually going on. So we're really prepared, I think, to win that argument.
We are. Unfortunately, there's science and then there's bot science.
Yeah,
and, the state legislature wanted to make sure that everybody in the state of California, if you were working here, you were going to have to be vaccinated. Thankfully, that was put off the table. But one of the things that people actually don't know is that in 2015, when Gavin Newsom signed SB 277, he also gave the state public health officer the ability to add shots to the schedule. The way it usually works, legislators come in, they introduce a bill, and then that bill gets passed or it dies. And then the vaccine would go on the schedule. And if that were to happen, then parents do not have an option. You have to do it or you can't put your kids in school.
Yeah.
With 2015, they allowed public health to add a shot without legislature, without any type of votes, and they would be able to put that on the childhood schedule. Fortunately, there is an exemption if that happens. And so that's why I got involved in politics, because legislators have not told us, my legislator, and I've spoken to so many people, legislators don't tell us what bills are before them or what's going on in the votes. And so we end up at the end of legislature in October angry that we have bills and new laws that we didn't get a vote on, but nobody told us that it was passing. So my hope is to be able to get in there and bring some transparency to California, talk to constituents, have town hall meetings, do polls, because like I said, people are so busy. We don't have time to look at that. We really need people in office that are going to share the information with us.
Well, we're dealing with the supermajority right now in California. And so you're going to go there. Let's just say you're elected. What's the first thing you're going to do?
There's a few things that are on the table for me right now, but I really want to course correct. I'm very uninterested in creating more restrictions for Californians. We have enough. I want to look at the legislation that's passed before us and really kind of talk to constituents. Is this something that you support? I would love to bring back religious exemptions for California children. I would love to bring in support for families and do away with some of these bills like 1078, AB 665 that lets children run away from home. My main priority right now is SB 132, the bill that allows men to transfer into women's prisons. Right now, men who are wanting protection from their prison yard are going into the women's prisons, being housed as roommates with women, impregnating them, and then the prison gives them Plan B pills and forces them into an abortion. And with stories from inmates that I've talked to, there was actually a baby found on prison grounds because they had to bury him. So what is happening is incredibly dark. Nobody wants to talk about it. We have to course correct that bill. We got to get the men out.
Well, you can make a difference, and in a way that the average person may not be able to understand. Your background's unique. Tell us about what happened to you as a youngster and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, I grew up on the streets of Stockton. I was between Stockton and Tracy. I was a very active gang member at the age of 12. I got jumped in, always living on the streets. I was a teen mom. I did not raise my daughter because I chose living on the streets over her. Thank God my mom was able to raise her. She's a beautiful young lady. But in all of that, that was my lifestyle. It was a violent lifestyle. I did not want to get out. And it was just something that I looked at as a kid and aspired to be. As weird as that sounds, I would see people in my neighborhood. I'm like, I want to do that. And I ended up doing it. Thank God he pulled me out of the pit of hell to put me here. But in 2012, I met my husband, who was also in prison before, and he educated himself on the vaccine program. And so when he got out, him and I sat down at lunch. I remember this day vividly. We were at L&L Barbecue, and we're sitting down. He looks at me. He goes, the kids are really sick. You should read a vaccine insert. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, you're a conspiracy theorist. Tell me everything. And he ended up pulling out an insert, and I took it home. I went onto my kids' medical records, and I started highlighting all the things that were wrong with them, and then all the things that were in that insert. And it angered me so much. It threw me into politics. 2015 came around and 277 was introduced, and my husband said, get in the car, we're going to the Capitol. We dressed all our kids in red shirts because that was the color that they were using. And that was the beginning of what I'm doing right now. I looked around and I'm like, this is incredible. We had thousands of parents there, but the bill still passed because pharmaceutical lobbyists paid off our legislators.
Well, you have a unique perspective and a background. My background isn't that extreme, but I grew up on the streets when I was 12 years old in San Francisco, 1958, and loved the life. I loved the freedom. I loved the independence. I loved the excitement. And I went to 15 schools and quit in the 10th grade. So you can imagine, but as soon as my records got to the next school, I was already gone. But it does help you see the battle, and you can fight a different way. So you're not conventional. You're a Republican, you're conservative, but you also deal directly with the other side.
You have to. We have to start talking across the aisle and really having the real conversations about the kind of bills, policy, legislation, whatever we need to talk to the other side, the Democrats, about. We can find common ground, and we've found that already. We're possibly getting our bill floated by a Democrat. We have to start talking to each other. And when we went to the Capitol, I thought everybody spoke to each other, right? I thought the Democrats spoke with the legislators and they were talking to each other about bills. That's not happening. You have a clique. It's like a high school clique.
Exactly.
You have the Republicans on this side who don't have any support, and there's like 10, so you're not going to do anything.
Moral outrage.
Yes, right? The outrage. You have Bill Asaley on the floor, and he's screaming, and he's a tiger, but you're not going to get anywhere like that.
Right, exactly.
And so I've been so blessed to have an opportunity to see both sides. I've lived both sides of the aisle. I've been a Democrat for my entire life because that's how I was raised. And then in 2016, I changed my party because I was so angry with what happened at the Capitol. So I've had the opportunity to live both lifestyles and to see the pandering that has been done through the California progressive extremists. But we also have some, I know people get upset. You say you can't work with Dems. You can't work with them because they're the party responsible for this. Yes, but there's also real world backlash happening right now when they pass these types of bills that now they're seeing. And so as we build our district to Capitol networks and train people, we're now able to go to the Capitol and say, we have 40, 50 people in your district that are going to ruin your campaign. Right. If we don't have a meeting, let's talk about it. And although we've lost a lot this past few years, we also gained a lot of traction. So I talked to both parties. I'm not going to be in my little echo chamber. No work will get done like that. And so, we hope that we can bring some kind of balance and course correction here.
But that comes along with knowing who you are. I mean, that comes you're not intimidated and you're not threatened by being able to talk to them in that regard. So it really puts you, it elevates you in a way that I think is very effective. And I was impressed when you said that earlier in our meeting today. But it's a tough road. I mean, we're dealing with another element to this whole political process, and that's the spiritual element. And, you know, I keep saying over and over again, God made us physical beings. We live in a physical world. We have to abide by physical law. Anybody that thinks they can jump off a 22-story building and not become a wet spot, show me your faith. Go jump and see what happens. But then we have the spell element of the spiritual part of our life. And that's where God works within us. That's where we have this unique ability to pray and speak to God and have answers to prayer. And that all has to be managed the right way. But you're using both of those, aren't you? What's your background and how did you come to Christ?
In 2021, after the lockdowns, I was trying to go to church, towards the end of it, and all the churches were closed. And I was like, this is a time that people actually need God. We need to be together. And I just had a come to Jesus moment. And I'm like, in my head, I was talking to my husband about it. And I said, I feel something like I want to go to church. I'm needing this type of relationship. And so I found an amazing church in my town, Stockton, Lifesong Church. The pastors are incredible. And I just had this moment to where I knew I was going to be able to do the road that I'm on. I fully believe 2024 is going to be a year of supernatural power. We're going to have a reckoning. This is the moment where we have to step in for their children. We have to protect them because they are after them. And so having our children on the front line is not an option for me. These are my kids. If you ask any mother what they would do for their kids, there's absolutely nothing that they wouldn't do.
Exactly.
And so although I may not like politics, and I never thought of myself as a politician, and I still don't, I am a mom, I'm a homeschooler, I'm a wife, and I'm a child of God. And this is our calling right now. We have such a good opportunity right now with everything that's been happening in this world. People are hungry for something. They want change. They want protections. They want our children to be protected. And I just think this is just the year of the doors, like my pastor said. It's going to be amazing.
Don't you love the fact that when we're in that position, we don't carry the responsibility of what happens?
No.
We just know we have to do what's right and obey God. We want a certain outcome, but it's a relief to know it's not on our shoulders. All we have to do is go out. I prayed, really, I was complaining so bad one day. I was right over there. We had a couch and I was kneeling down. I was saying, God, this is terrible. I'm just disgusted. I'm discouraged. I'm worn out. I can't get people to do what they're supposed to do. I can't get them to put out the effort. I have these people complaining. And it was like a voice came back and said, Terry, I understand I have the same problem. Really?
It really
Think about it.
It's like herding cats, trying to get people.
But God has to herd cats all over the world every day.
However this race ends, it's not something that I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the work that we're supposed to do.
Exactly. I felt that from you today.
That's all I want to do. I want to do the work. I want to help people learn how to do the work. I know how powerful our voices are. I've seen it. I've seen it unfold at the Capitol. I've seen it unfold at a district level. And so 40% of people in churches aren't actually registered to vote, which is wild to me. We have a responsibility. Yes, we leave it in God's hands, but God needs help down here too.
Faith without works is dead.
Yes, we have to work it. We have to talk to people, talk to the community, let them know what is going on. People have no idea the kind of laws that have been passed, but they do know that California is squeezing us out. They just don't know how. And so my job and my mission, and like I said earlier in today's talk, I was asked to run for this position many times, and many times I said no, like I'm not going to run. And then I had a conversation with God. So I'm going to pray on it and I'll get back to you. That same night, I was told, this is where I want you to be. And then the next day, the person who was running in that seat pulled out.
Wow.
I'm like, this is where you want me to be. Well, this is where I'm going to do. And even though it's running for political seat, I co-founded an organization called Freedom Angels, and we train people at the Capitol how to get involved. We train them on how to talk to legislators. And regardless if I'm running, I'm still going to be teaching people at the Capitol. So I still have my mission of trying to course correct in that way by engaging in the community. And if I win this seat, I win the seat by the grace of God. I'm still going to be working. We still got to work in here in California and really all over the nation. People move to red states to try to feel more comfortable.
Sure.
But every state in the nation is dealing with a version of what California is dealing with. Texas Children's Hospital is transitioning babies. So you're not safe in a red state. You're just not seeing what the red state is doing.
Well, you and I have a unique situation. If you've ever lived on the streets, if you ever grew up on your own, the way you have, the way I have, and you develop a certain sense of street smarts, and you can read people, I think, a lot, and you sense when something is true and when it's a con. You feel that kind of stuff more than the average conventional person growing up does. But you know, God has a law. It's called the law of compensation. Have you ever heard about that?
I haven't. Tell me.
Well, here's the way the law of compensation works. There's no gains without losses, and there's no losses without gains. When I came to Christ, it was dramatic. It was life-changing. I've never known fear in my life like I did when I fell to my knees and felt the conviction of my sin. And everything I ever did was like on a slideshow. And I saw the people that I hurt. I saw the people that I shot. I didn't kill anybody, but I shot people. And I saw the consequences of my life before God. And I wanted to crawl through the floor just to get away from him. And then it like burst inside of me. And the feeling came over me. And I knew that I had touched reality. This was something real that you can't define. And I got up and I cried out to God. I said, Lord, I will serve you. And so I didn't know what to do. I was in a privileged situation at that point. I was given I was going to take over my uncle's bowling alley. He promised me for different reasons, and I was working towards that. And I remember going to him and I said, Uncle Bob, look, I appreciate all that you're doing for me. I was 23 years old. I said, I appreciate all that you're doing for me, but I gotta leave. I have to get out of here. I can't deal with the bar. I can't deal with all this stuff going on. It's been too much a part of my life. And he said, well, where are you going? I said, well, there's a Christian commune in the Haight-Ashbury called the Clayton House, and I'm going to go stay at this Clayton House. And he said, Terry, he said, look, I'll talk to your cousin Bobby. He's a Christian, and he's good with all this stuff, and blah, blah, blah. I said, Uncle Bob, you don't understand. If something happens to him, he falls off the curb. If something happens to me, I go over the Grand Canyon. And I said, I'll probably never get back. So I said, I'm not messing around with this. And I left. I gave everything I had away, all my cars, my clothes, my record albums, everything. And I went to this Christian commune for a year. And God touched me, but here's what I knew, and this is what I think you probably know. I'm never going to let myself lose this. I'm not doing anything on purpose. Now, I do a lot of things, stupid things, and crazy things, and, so I'm not anywhere near perfect. But I'm not going to lose what God gave to me for anything.
No.
I don't think you would either.
No. What we've been given was a gift. We were given a gift of a second chance. That is something I will never let go. And just how God gave me another second chance, I'm really living the American dream. This is what people want. I am happy. I am married. I have my beautiful children. I have a beautiful home. I have my chickens. And, I'm living a life of peace right now. I know going into politics is going to disrupt a lot of things, but there is nothing, again, like I said, nothing I wouldn't do for my kids and for kids in this nation, because every child is going to be suffering at the hands. If Gavin Newsom gets into office at the White House, can you imagine what our nation's going to look like?
It's frightening. It's frightening.
And all we can do is work district by district. We have to get out in the streets. I hope that this year, all of the Republican organizations, all of the independent organizations, and all of the Democrats that feel politically homeless get out in the streets and find a candidate that they can actually support. Most of the people I talk to are really done with party lines. We're really done with either this or that and having to choose. We know what party is doing this. It's the extreme progressives that these people don't have any children, and they're creating laws that want to take our children away from us. And the other a couple weeks ago I was on the Dr. Drew show, and he said the only difference between a pit bull and a mom is a pit bull. Let's go. And that's very true. I am so very upset at 277. This was really the law that sent everybody leaving California. All of the moms I knew, my close friends, the good relationships, they're all gone because they didn't want to have to deal with this. But this year, I hope people get active, go into the community. If you're in my district, Stockton, Tracy, Lathrop, Mountain House, I need you walking with me. We will never outspend the progressives.
Impossible.
Never. It is impossible to outspend
Billions
them.
of dollars.
Oh yeah, and just like nothing. We need to be out in the community talking to people and telling them about what has passed. That's why I created that infographic that I'm passing out with my flyers, because even Democrats, when they see a flyer that has all the laws that have passed, and they're like, I'm not okay with that. Well, then you're not being represented. Did your legislator come out and talk to you about this?
Right.
Did they tell you? And in my area, we had what he calls himself a moderate, but he voted for AB 957. This bill would have removed custody from a parent who does not affirm their child's gender identity. If the other parent were to take that child and transition him or her, the judge could take away the kid from the other parent. We're seeing that with a child who was 2 years old. The mother was transitioning him to a girl, and the dad lost custody. This is so wrong on so many different levels. California should be creating policies that support families and giving resources, because the world is changing and parents don't know how to deal with it right now. Why don't you give us resources instead of threatening to take our children away?
Well, you are uniquely qualified. If people get behind you and you win this election, you're going to be able to go in as a fighter. You're going to be able to go in as a mom and as a mother and housewife, and you have that unique, I think, gifting to relate to people, to advocate for people. But I also think there's another opportunity why we need people like you to get elected, as many as we can. I've been talking to some state leaders, and we've been discussing, is it possible to flip California? And so in order to know that, you have to understand the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to crunch the numbers and find reality in those numbers or not. And so we've done that. We've crunched the numbers. We know we're out registered 2-1. We know our people groups. We've got the no party preference, Hispanic community, which has a natural affinity to grassroots conservatives,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that the church doesn't vote.
I know.
So if we just increase by 8% the Christian vote, the no party preference vote, and the Hispanic vote, we can't lose.
No, we will take California.
We can.
Yep.
So are you aware of the school choice program that lost last time, but they're redoing it? Dale Bruin, I'd love for you to meet him. And his people are restructuring it, but they couldn't get on the ballot for 2024. The state messed them up.
Yeah.
And so it's going on for 2026. So if people elect you and you're in that position, and we have enough inside support, and then work the numbers that we have, and we get behind the school initiative, because that gives $17,000 a year to educate your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we can flip this state. We can literally flip the state, but we need you to get elected.
Yeah, and we need people to register to vote and vote in the primaries. One of the things that I'm talking to a lot of people in my community is, if you go to church, talk to your pastor about putting up a booth and just registering people to vote. You're not messing with the 501. You're not going to get in trouble. register people to vote. And we really have to start using the tactics that the left uses with the ballot harvesting. Many people don't agree with it, but that's what we have to do. We're going to have to do it.
And then change it once we get in.
Exactly. We have to play their game until we can course correct the issue.
Do you know Dran Reese of Salt and Lake Ministry?
I do not.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to connect you today with Dran Reese. She's been a fighter. You're going to love this woman. She has a story. I don't want to get way off into it, but she invented that little Play-Doh thing that you stuck on the wall and you hung your picture on it.
Oh, okay.
And made a very large amount of money. And so she felt the calling of the Lord, and she turned the business basically over to her husband. And she formed an organization called Salt and Light Ministry. Mm-hmm. And they have the best interpretation of Scripture and Christians and politics of anyone I've ever seen. It's all online. I'll give you that information before you go. But she would be an important connection for you. So we'll get you introduced to Dran. And her, she has a statewide organization. She has a lot of good contacts. So
that would be great.
So you need to meet Dran. And if Dran happens to be watching us live on Facebook, then she'll be waiting for your call.
That would be great. And, you know, one of the things I really want people who are listening, who are parents, is to homeschool. That is my number one thing right now. Schools are so dangerous. Having your kids on the front line and then trying to fight that system isn't going to work, because you're not allowed on school campuses. You have to check in. There's security issues. And if you feel like you can't homeschool because you work, we created things that are co-ops. So all the parents get together and they help each other homeschool. There's enrichment centers that you can create. There's trust that you can put your private membership association in. This is we have been, my partner Tara Thornton and Freedom Angels for the last 5 years has been looking and researching how to get people out of the public domain into the private domain. So that way you can protect your assets. That's what they use up there. That's what all the elites use is trust. But I really want parents to feel supported and know homeschooling, you're perfectly capable of homeschooling. You can teach your kids to read, write, math, and do all the fun things. But there's a system in place and there's policies in California that are pushing parents out. And the best thing you can do to protect your children is to pull them from the system and to homeschool them.
Well, there's a thing called School Exit, and Dran is very much involved with that. So there's resources. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
And there's so many ways that we can apply all that, but it takes a level of unity that just isn't there yet.
I know.
We're not there yet, but that's the challenge.
And it starts little by little. We're not going to all unite across the state, but you can start in your own community. We have 100 kids in our co-op.
58 counties.
100 students have been pulled out of the public school system.
Wow.
To go into a homeschool co-op at a church.
So what's your position on I don't even want to talk about this, the economic dilemma we are now in California? I mean, we're billions of dollars upside down. It's just the most gross mismanagement ever. And what would you do to change that?
Well, we need to find out where the money went first. You can't change it until you know where this is going. There's a lot of committees.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of organizations that are getting paid 6-figure salaries to figure out why there's homeless issues, but there's no money actually into the issues. We spent $17 billion on homeless in California.
What a joke.
Do we have family shelters in my district? We have one with a population of over 200,000. Do we have trade school opportunities for those who maybe want to get off the streets and create a better life? No. Do we have transitional housing for those who are trying to get on their own? No. There's nothing to show for it. We have spent billions of dollars. Billions has been taken from us with no realistic, viable solutions for homeless, for mental health, for parental rights, for water, nothing. First, we need to find out where the money went.
Then what?
And then we need to get rid of all of these committees, stop spending money the way that they're spending here at the state with all of the organizations. There are so many nonprofits that are getting so much money from the state of California.
It's a giveaway.
It is.
Biden's doing that. You know, he's billions and billions of dollars going into the hands of Iran and these other groups. But it makes sense what you just said. And then I know you have a policy on water for the state. That has been it's a joke. I mean, it's a joke. Anybody who doesn't see what's going on is really brain dead.
Exactly. Why are we pouring water into the ocean? Why don't we have an infrastructure to hold the water that the farmers need? Like I said earlier, we feed a quarter of the nation. In the Central Valley, we're ag. Yet these farmers are getting all the bureaucratic red tape, getting water withheld, taxed like crazy. And, water has been an issue because I work with the farmers, but I'm not so well versed in it that I can go up to the Capitol and do policy on it. So what I'm doing is I'm meeting with the farmers in San Joaquin County. We're going to have one big meeting to talk about what are the issues that you're seeing. What are some of the restrictions that you want to be lifted? I want to hear from people, because if a legislator or a politician tells you they have all the answers to every single issue, they're lying to you.
Oh, well, look at the results. Look at what's going on. We're in the dumpster.
Yeah. We can keep doing the same thing over and over and electing the same people over and over, and we're going to be in the same exact spot, and we're going to be squeezed out. People making $100,000 can't even make it in California anymore.
Well, we're an oil state, too. We are an oil state.
Yeah, but they refuse to utilize it. There was, I forgot what bill number it was, but there was a bill last year that was restricting oil drilling. There were so many lobbyists in the rotunda of the Capitol. My partner and I are kind of looking around, and there was hundreds of them. And they were so excited because these are all lobbyists that are getting paid.
Hello.
And this is also the big problem at the Capitol. Why are lobbyists paying legislators to pass legislation? That does not represent their constituents. That represents special interest groups.
Of course.
We need to stop with that, especially the pharmaceutical lobbying.
And you're committed to doing that.
I will not take a dime from a pharmaceutical, from a special interest group, from a lobbyist. That's not my job.
Wow. Well, what about transportation? Because our infrastructure is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this, I think it's well known now, but maybe not as much as it should be. There's this agenda to create mass transit and low-cost housing along a corridor. And if you've been to the Bay Area, especially around San Jose, going south to Gilroy, you see this this development model of just, it looks like instant ghetto.
Yep.
To me, I mean, it's just so congested, and the light rail, which can be a good thing, but they're using it, and they're using this transportation thing to divest of our vehicles.
This is socialism. It's them trying, introducing socialism
Exactly.
to us. Alex Lee, who represents the Bay Area, he is trying to create socialist apartments. So they want us living off the government. They want us in their socialized apartments. They want us
Exactly.
without driving,
It's something
depending.
about 15-minute
15-minute cities.
Cities.
So
Tell us.
15-minute cities are cities that are going to be created to where you don't have to leave outside of that district, and you
I
can't
shudder
leave.
at that. I mean, I get
It's like those
claustrophobic.
sci-fi movies that you're watching. You're like, so they're really telling us that this is what's going to happen. There's a movie called What Happened on Monday, and that's kind of like what we're doing here. So they
Right.
don't want us driving. They're taking away all the parking spots. Car insurance right now to get it in California is astronomical.
It is. We're
It's
paying
gonna-
it. We know.
Yeah, it's
Hello.
going to be impossible. We actually got dropped by an insurance company because they said, "Oh, we can't cover you guys anymore. Your car is like one of the main ones that get stolen." So this is again in turn because of the soft on crime laws that these legislators have created, to where there's no punishment, there's no consequences. Cars are getting stolen. Insurance
Right.
companies aren't going to want to cover you, so we can barely cover our insurance, our car, and our necessities.
So we could do a good job on infrastructure. We have the money, if it's
Oh, yeah.
managed right, to do all of this. I remember when people used to visit from out of state, and we would go and they said, "I can't believe these roads you have in California. There are no potholes," and they would just be amazed at how good our roads were, and then look at them now.
It's a mess. I think I need to put on a banner. Where did all the money go? We get taxed.
I love that.
Record high taxes here.
Show us the money.
Show us the money. Where did it go? Because it's clearly not going back into our community. I'm not getting any return on the high taxes that we pay. Where's it going? Gavin Newsom has mismanaged taxpayer money. We're in a $70 billion deficit. How does that
That's
happen?
what the figure I didn't remember, but $70 billion.
$70 billion. How does that happen? And now, because we're in a deficit, one of the things that he's cutting, the programs he's cutting, is the foster care programs to help children. So you're telling me you're going to cut funding for the foster care system, yet you've just signed AB 665 that puts children into the foster care system. So where are these kids going to go?
Yeah.
So, we have a long road ahead. And to be honest, this is our fault. We stopped engaging in politics. We vote people in and then we don't pay attention to what they're doing. And then we just allow the snowball effect with 2,000 bills passed every year. That's restrictions on us. Bills are restrictions on us. It does not help us. It's not their
Right.
job to do that many bills. Thankfully, we have a representative, Kate Sanchez from Southern California, who's introduced a bill that will cap how many bills a legislator can write. Because right now, I believe it's at 50. 50 times 81 legislators, that's a lot of stuff to be going across the table.
Well, if you get elected and you get in there, you're going to be able to operate and have an influence that could really make a difference.
I hope so.
It can change the culture. We have such a upside down, culture in our government in California. What are some of the other issues that you are passionate about?
My issues are really parental rights. This is what got me in there.
Right.
Children, safety, small
Right.
businesses. When the lockdowns happened in Stockton, actually San Joaquin County was the strongest county for not adhering to the crazy mandates and lockdowns. Businesses still stayed open, but they were being harassed. So what my partner and I did is we got a coalition of small business owners that were in Stockton, and we literally had a phone tree.
Whoa.
If any kind of agency comes to shut you down, call this number, and this number is going to call everybody else, and we're going to stand in front of your store. We had about 25 businesses that stayed open, publicly stayed open, and said no. And we did a picture in front of the city hall, and then the LA Times said far right anti-vaxxer extremist helps restaurants stay open. It's like, look, the state of California has no jurisdiction on our livelihoods. What they did was a recommendation, not a mandate, not a law. We need to understand and recognize the branches of government. Small businesses in my county, we are the home of small businesses. We don't have a lot of large corporations. We have to start protecting these businesses. These livelihoods are going to go away. They're going to move. They're going to take their business somewhere else, and we're going to be left to foot the bill of the taxes and then have to shop with corporations.
Well, you just brought up something that's so critical and so devastating to us is the amount of restrictions they're putting on, and it's almost unbearable. For example, restaurants now, fast food, have to pay $20 an hour. People just don't understand. It sounds great, but it's socialism. You have a minimum wage to get people in, get them trained, and bring them up to speed, and that is a good thing. The low minimum wage isn't a bad thing if it leads to advancement and increased income.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think of that whole bill?
It's destroying people's lives already. The restaurants are having to fire people because they can't keep them on the payroll. Then they're increasing their prices because they can't afford to keep people on the payroll. And then there was an article today, and they were saying that restaurants are now having to take away vacation times from some of the employees because they can't afford it. What do you think this is going to do to our economy when people are out of a job? They can't, if they are getting the $20 an hour and they're getting, 25, 30 hours a week, they don't qualify for any type of assistance because that threshold hasn't changed.
Right.
So now you don't qualify for assistance. You don't have enough money to pay your bills because your hours got cut. Now you're going to lose your apartment. Now where are you going to go? It's going to trickle down to every single person. And it's just interesting because Gavin Newsom is going to cut the pay increase for healthcare workers, but he's not even looking at the fast food workers. We have farm workers who are getting paid $15 an hour, picking our fruit in the heat and in the cold.
Really doing work.
Really doing the work, and they're not getting paid. So I think everybody from every direction, Black, Mexican, Latino, white, whatever it is, everybody's being affected. This is the people's issue.
It is, and that's you brought up a point that they've been very successful at creating racism and anti-white now is being promoted in a way that it's just ridiculous. First of all, if you know anything about the Bible, you know that there's iniquity in all of people's hearts. So people are just, the default position is racism or some other form of selfishness that you want to get what you want and the way you want it. And then when you're offended, you're going to lash out. I mean, that's just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of racism is being used to manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
But we have an opportunity to change that. Like here, we've been here 4 years, and I don't think racism, in fact, there was a business that didn't want to deal with us because we had too many Black and non-white people involved in what we're doing here. And that somebody came to me with that, and I was shocked. But we can be a testimony to how Christ brings us together. We're one blood, we're one race,
Mm-hmm.
we're human, but we have differences, and so those things are one of the ways that I think, and you brought something up earlier. They define us a certain way, so they want to define you,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're good at doing that. They succeed at making people believe that.
Yes.
We have to learn how to reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you do it?
I stand on it. Honestly, the best way to end racism is stop talking about race. We
Right.
just got to stop talking about it.
Yeah.
I have not been oppressed. I have actually had so much opportunity. Look at where I'm at from where I came from. The United States, we have so many faults, but to be worried all the time, everything is about race. Every single thing is
Yeah.
about this white person this and this white person that. We just got to stop talking about it. I'm fine with what the media calls me. The media calls me a white supremacist with a tan. I don't know how much more racist you can get. It doesn't matter to me. And this is
Right.
what we show people. My partner Tara and I show people is that no matter how many names they call me or us, no matter the kind of narrative they try to put on us, we're still standing. We're still here. Those are just words. I'm not going to stop doing all the things that I'm doing and stop getting involved in politics because CNN or Washington Post called me something. They put my face on the news calling me a terrorist because I train women on how to be self-sufficient, and these women train in how to shoot guns or how to hit bow and arrows, whatever exercise we decide to do. They put me up and called me that. And it's like, where's the accountability for you guys? This is a problem. If as a Latina, as a Mexican woman, American Mexican woman, if I don't believe all the things they say and reiterate all the things they say, then the racist remarks comes out. It's like they want to keep me in my place. You're Mexican. You need to believe what we say you
But
believe.
they're the ones
But
talking about that.
yes.
They're the ones saying that.
Constantly. They're the ones calling me names. They're the ones calling me a white supremacist. They're the ones calling me a coconut. All of these words that they use. Like, so do you really believe that we should end racism? Or
Well, I hear white privilege and I just chuckle because my family came from Ireland. My mother's father and mother and my great-grandparents came from Ireland to this little island called Amherst Island in Ontario, Canada. They were the day workers. They were the cheap labor. They had to be taken off the island. They worked all day. They were paid almost nothing, and they had to go back on this island that was really accommodating 800 people. They had like 12,000 people on this island, all poor Irish. And my grandmother would tell us, okay, now when you go to school, don't tell them you're Irish, because we had a bad reputation. There were fighters and drinkers and whatever they defined us as. But so I grew up as a white person, young boy, being told by my grandmother, don't tell anybody you're Irish. And if you do, then we're going to be looked down upon. And then they had the real racism then, wasn't black or brown. If you were an Italian, you were a DP. And so my point is that humans are going to pick on anything they can. and display the nature that they have, which is evil, and we're despicably deceitful and wicked above all things, unless Jesus Christ has changed us. And if he has, then we're one people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, to me, is a way that we can demonstrate who we really are. We don't have to get into that whole racial thing or be intimidated by it either. And that's what I saw in you, that you really know who you are.
Yes, I'm
you're
very
not-
comfortable with who I am.
Yeah.
I don't care about attacks. I have tunnel vision with my kids. I look at them, and my daughter's 25 years old, so she's close to having kids one day, and there's no option not to do this, because I have my littles, and then I'm going to have grandchildren, and they're going to have children, and I don't want to leave this world thinking that my children or my grandchildren are going to be slaves. And so I have no choice but to do this. I've been blessed to be in this situation, and because of the way I grew up, I have some of the thickest skin that I can go into this battle and not worry about the names or the looks or however they want to speak to me. I know who I am, I know what I want, and I know why I'm here, and I know that God put me here for a specific mission. So I'm going to complete that mission regardless of anybody's opinion of me.
What is your district? What is included in your district?
So it is District 13. It is Stockton, Lathrop, Tracy, and Mountain House. So they just redistricted, and they took out all the red area and they put me in all the blue area, and they brought all the transplants from the Bay Area. So I have a lot of work to do, but thankfully the area of Mountain House is the population is more Sikh, and they're conservative.
Sure.
You know, I've spoken with them at the Capitol. So it is really what I need right now is, if there's any listeners in that area, I need canvassers. I don't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations, but I do have the work ethic to be out there. I'm out there every single day. I'm talking to people every single day. We knocked on doors on Saturday. We hit over 1,000 houses.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. And it was raining and it was cold, and I had volunteers out there. Die-hard people who have been in this movement for a long time and who recognize what kind of moment we're in, and they know we have such a good chance to flip this district. I just need people out there in the community to help me canvass, because I can only do so much on my own.
Why don't we do this? We're down to about 5 minutes in the show, and I'm so impressed by who you are and what you're doing. It really makes America look good to have you fight and demonstrate your passion as a patriot, as an American, as a Mexican woman, living in a state that is being manipulated so badly. So look at the camera and tell the people why they should vote for you and what you think you can do for them.
Sure. I am asking for your support so we can bring course correction. I know that I can bring the voice of the people. This is our race. This is not my race. I'm not in here to be a politician. I'm in here to bring your voices and your concerns to the table and really work bipartisan to get work done in California. I would love your support if you're in my district. If you're not in my district, I can still accept your support with canvassing or donating. You can visit my website at Denise, the number 4, and then assembly13.com. I promise to represent you. This is the thing I've been doing for almost a decade, representing parents and families who have not been represented by the extremists in legislature. And I'm ready to take this by the horns and really get in there and bring parental rights to the issue, bring human and civil rights to the issue, and course correct our beautiful state. I am not leaving. I'm not moving. You cannot get rid of me. We're going to have our voice at the political seat.
Well, I'm hoping to get your help. I really want Liberty Coalition to learn from what you're doing, and especially coordinating some of the things and the training. We have to equip ourselves. You know, we're in a real battle with an enemy that is very capable.
Yes.
And so we'll be contacting you and asking for your help and appreciating getting some training going. But if there's anything we can do for you, I'm there for you.
Thank you.
We'll encourage people, and even this is going on YouTube right now as they're watching us on Rumble and all the different platforms. So we'll take some of this interview and we'll package it, get it sent out to people, and ask people to forward it to their contacts. And that's another grassroots way of overcoming this financial
Absolutely.
deficit, right?
I have my signs. I have my flyers. I'm good to go.
Where,
I just need
where do
canvassing.
people go to contact you? Is there an address?
You can go to the website for any kind of lawn signs or anything like
Okay,
that.
one more time, let's give them the website.
It is Denise, DENISE, the number 4, and then assembly13.com. And you can reach out to us. You can email us and we'll get that to you. And then on February 5th, we're going to be at the California Capitol for a grassroots lobby
Ooh,
training
nice.
day.
Nice.
It's going to be wonderful. We meet at noon on the west side of the Capitol. You'll see some pop-ups. We have a 30-minute deep dive training on what we're going to be doing. And then it's hands-on training inside. We're taking people inside the Capitol to talk with legislators. We show people how bills are formed, where they go, how the Senate and Assembly floor work. And it's really a great opportunity. If you're a homeschooler, bring your kids out for civics. Let them know what it looks like.
Well, here's another thing. This studio just got installed. KXEX has made this their studio home.
Mm-hmm.
And so we operate the radio program, the Guillermo Marino and his family. And so we are on every day on the radio and podcasting. So you can call in. Actually, it's better if you come in through Zoom so people can see you. So it's available. Let us know, and we'll try and get the word out for you. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for
It's
having
been
me.
a blessing. And thank you for tuning in. Wild About Liberty. We're trying to make a difference. We want to get people informed. People like Denise and Ellington Smith and Dennis McCourt and Eric Rowland and Guillermo Marino. We're all participating and doing this radio program, doing these podcasts in order to make a difference. So think about how you can help us out in prayer, number one, maybe donations, but most of all, volunteer and make yourself available. We have a facility that you can come to. We're having a mixer on next Wednesday in the evening from 6 to 7:30. I'm sorry, from 6:30 to 8. That's Wednesday from 6:30 to 8. We're having a mixer with a bunch of candidates. Thank you for tuning in to Wild About Liberty. God bless.
That's good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.